Welcome back to the Menopause Coach Podcast with me, your host, as always, Adele Johnston, your menopause coach and educator for around about 20 minutes or so as we go into another big episode topic, frozen shoulder. We're going to talk about what it is, why it happens, and I'm going to bring a personal story into this one because I did not think that frozen shoulder happened until later in life, and I want to share with you my whole big aha moment through the journey of understanding frozen shoulder. Now, this podcast, as well as other episodes, are for educational and informational purposes only. They are based on my own personal experience, my professional understanding and research. However, I want to make sure that this is not intended to replace any medical advice, no diagnosis or treatment. Always seek your own guidance from your GP or medical team, please, or menopause specialist. Okay, this does not replace this. Now, at 42 years old, I will be 43 this year, I never imagined that I personally would be sitting here talking about frozen shoulder from my own personal perspective. Not because I thought I'm invincible or my health is so high up on the spectrum here, of the ladder of health, that nothing happens to me. That is not the case. But because I've always been someone who really truly did prioritize health and understand what are the things that I can do to prevent. It doesn't mean that I will always avoid, but things I can do to either lower the risk instance or the onset of certain ailments, problems, and health impacts. I've trained hard for years, and I mean lifting heavy ass weights. I've competed in bodybuilding, bikini competitions, as I've shared before. Won double gold Scottish champion, got 5 British invites. And I've really pushed my body both physically, mentally, and emotionally through that sport. But one thing it always gave me was an inner sense of health first and inner resilience. Yet here I am right now, delivering this episode to you about frozen shoulder from a personal lens. I'm talking about waking up in so much pain because I've rolled onto my left shoulder in my bed in my sleep and it woke me up. Yeah, talking about struggling to move my arm properly. I cannot put on or take off a bra right now. Right? I am going braless most of my life at this moment. I am letting it all be free. It's quite invigorating and very liberating, actually. I'm enjoying being free and braless. But it's because I can't bloody dress myself right now. I'm having to get help to put on jackets, take them off, put jumpers on, take them off. It is absolutely ridiculous how painful this is. I don't know why they call it frozen shoulder. It is bloody painful shoulder. That's what it is. I'm struggling with it. And I want to share with you what I've learned. Because talking about it helps us to understand more. And when we talk about it from a perspective of, I've got personal experience, but then understanding, well, what is it that's actually happening? This is going to help so many of you today. Okay, so honestly, when this first started happening, I got a little bit scared. I got scared because my mobility was compromised. It still is, but I'm working on that and I'll share with you the steps I'm taking. But also, I realized that this has an interconnecting life perspective or life instance with menopause, with my early menopause. I suppose what scared me the most in all of this is the understanding and realizing that this was not just about an injury or an ailment that I have. It's linked to my menopause, and most specifically, the reduction in my estradiol at a younger age, but also the reduction in my estradiol at the age of 42. Because my menopause story didn't begin in my 40s, as many of you will know if you followed these episodes from the very beginning. And if you have, I have so much love for you. Welcome back to another episode together. It's nice that we get to do this every week. But when I was 33, I started to recognize changes in my own body. First, I didn't know what it was. It took me a few years to figure out that what I was experiencing was not actually normal. And when I say that with the most love. My body shouldn't have been experiencing the ailments that it was experiencing at such a young age because, hey, menopause doesn't happen that young, right? Or can it? Well, I'm proof it does. And so many other women will go through this a bit earlier than what the textbooks will all say. Now, my body's been changing in ways for years now that just did not make sense to me. There are new symptoms that appear honestly, like quite out of the blue at times, symptoms that feel completely alien and abnormal to me at times, especially for my age. And I just feel like we navigate these symptoms that we hear about now and again, but it's not until they actually hit us, sometimes literally, that we're like, oh my God, this is intense. This is not okay. Now, I have navigated what I'm about to share with you for around about 6 months now, maybe a little bit longer if I'm truly, truly honest with myself. And part of that is because life has been busy and I've just admittingly pushed it to the back, ignored it, not really done much with it until it got to a point where my body was literally screaming at me that I could not ignore it any longer. I have spent many hours seeking both NHS and private health support for many different parts of my early menopause. And this is a time for me now where I'm navigating yet another new, I say new, but 6-month-old ailment or issue that I'm experiencing. And no one really prepares you for this when it happens, regardless of what you're facing. So I want this episode to be all about just bringing to the surface some knowledge for you, as with every episode. Because when we understand what it is and why it's happening, we can take informed action. Empowered response of what we feel we want and need at that time. And we all know right now, because we've been here for many episodes, that when our estradiol, ladies, is lowering, this is your primary female sex hormone, or one of them, may I add, then this could be happening for up to 10 years really before you enter into your true menopause phase. So perimenopause can last a decade or more sometimes. A little bit less for others. There's no rule to this. Okay, so you could be navigating the reduction in your hormones for over 10 years before you're truly in your menopause and postmenopausal stage of this journey. But the ripple effects that we have on our bodies can be huge. Yeah, and sometimes we're like, totally got the hang of this menopause thing, like bossing it, nailing it. And then, whack, something else comes out of the blue, a new symptom that we're like, where the hell did you even come from? Whether it's bone related or cognitive and sharpness within our brain related. Yeah, your skin changes. Maybe you start to recognize pains and ailments in places you've never had them before. But apparently, it can just happen in our shoulders too. So here we are. I laugh because I'm sitting here sharing this with you right now going, how am I even here? But apparently it doesn't matter how active you are, it can happen. So let's go back and look a little bit at this journey. I'm going to share with you what I suspected this was and where I am in my rehabilitation journey right now. So years before me acknowledging that this is potential frozen shoulder, we may add, I was prepping for a bodybuilding competition and I had quite a nasty injury. It happens. Every person that has been involved in sport at some point will have torn a muscle. And I did that. I injured my deltoid, my delt, the big muscle in the shoulder. I injured that by just really lazy lifting. Okay, I fully hold my hands up and admit it. And it resulted in what we will all do when we're resting up. It's a 6-week recovery. Let the muscle fibers heal and repair. But what happened around about that period was I continued to train. I continued to compete. Now, I thought that was just part of then an ongoing niggle that I've had from that injury when I started to experience the pain recently. So when I've started to feel this discomfort back again in my shoulder, I would say it was at the latter part of last year. I just assumed that it was just that injury resurfacing. It can happen, right? We can niggle a little injury that we've had if we've had quite a bad one before. So I just presumed that's what it was. I gave it some rest. I didn't lift as heavy, increased protein, increased rest, got some massages, did the things that actually worked previously. I just thought it's just another niggle, an old injury that's resurfacing. And I treated it like that, like I always had done, and it would resolve and get better. But this time it just never got better. And I started to recognize that it felt a bit different. Instead of it getting and improving itself, it slowly started to become worse. a little niggle that would be like, oh, I'm recognizing that if I do certain movements, then became a throbbing pain. And if you've ever had any suspected frozen shoulder, you will know what I mean when I say that. Then came the disturbed sleep. So falling to sleep was actually quite easy, but eventually I reached a point where I was rolling onto my left side, and I love to sleep on my left side, and it would waken me up with the pain in my shoulder. So it wouldn't just be my shoulder, it would go down my arm, it would be in my back. It would literally not even be to a point where I'm just like, oh, that's a bit discomforting. It would be oh my God, this has woken me up. It's so painful. Like, I can't sleep on that side. And it was really tough to deal with. So I just started to sleep on my back, on my right side, and ignore it. I shouldn't have done that. I know, I would never, ever tell you to do that. So very, very naughty, Adele. But it was obviously a sign to me that something else was happening. Something else was going on. So I booked in with my physio and went to see him. I've been to see my physio for years whenever I've had any issues, over a decade now. And I trust him implicitly with what we need to do. We talked about it. We had a detailed assessment. And after examining the shoulder and testing my movement patterns, it was quite in depth and it was very painful. He did agree that this was not a simple muscle injury. This was something that appeared to be the onset of frozen shoulder. And that for me was just a what moment. I really stopped me, because I was like, no, that can't be me. That can't be happening to me. Like, surely not. You know, I'm on it. I'm taking care of my health. I've got my HRT on the go. How has this even happened? And he warned me, and this was the big thing, okay, that got me to take proper action. He warned me that without treatment and without rehabilitation, it could progressively worsen and I would lose mobility and function in that shoulder and arm over time. And that's not something that I'm sure even you listening to this right now, that's not something any of us want to just sit with the knowledge of and go, yeah, okay, I'll leave it. Straight away, I done everything he asked me to. The first thing was book in for a GP appointment and arrange to get a cortisone injection into the shoulder so we can start rehab work. Because let me tell you, he can definitely not start any physiotherapy rehab. Poking, prodding and pulling on that shoulder, the pain, 10 out of 10. It was step away. You are not touching my shoulder. This is too painful. So this is where we are. Yeah. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, how can I, at 42 years old, an active female, health conscious, physically strong, facing something that sounds horrendous, losing full mobility potentially if we don't do anything with it? And it's exactly why we need to have these conversations around menopause, around the impacts that this can have. As much as we take all the action, the precautionary measures, we are not immune from things progressing. So I invite you to stop with me at this point and have a think about, are you recognizing anything in what I've shared today? Not being able to have full range of movement in your arm, doesn't matter which one. Pain that wakens you up and stops you, maybe falling asleep or wakens you up from sleep. Pain that if you move in a certain way, you're like, Jesus, that is so sore. And then it subsides and you're fine. Ridiculous, right? It's so painful. This is like a 10 out of 10 for pain. And I've birthed babies, for goodness sake. So we need to experience this by talking it through. Because so many women are experiencing symptoms like this. It's a musculoskeletal issue that it's not about whether you do something to avoid it. It might happen anyway. So frozen shoulder, as we know it. What I have been reading up and learning on this has really opened my eyes. Let me tell you. This is a condition where the connective tissue capsule that surrounds the shoulder itself, the joint becomes inflamed. It's inflammation. Okay, so that cortisone injection that I've had is designed to work on the inflammation so that me and my physio can do the work to rehabilitate the shoulder. End of story. And, I'm praying that this will work. Because if not, we're talking about further investigations, MRIs, figuring out what is going on. So when the joint becomes inflamed, we've got all this thickening and all this stiffness and all this injury and pain and swelling. And it's just a recipe for disaster for many of us. And over time, if we leave it as I have done, but if I left it any longer, the capsule tightens. Okay, it's like it's contracting, it's really tightening. The movement becomes really restricted. So right now, I cannot put that left arm up my back to unclip a bra or to tie anything. I can't even put a jacket on properly. The range of movement has been so restricted and compromised without pain. Okay, it's not even that it's just I can't move it. It's that my body prevents me from moving it because of the pain. And it's progressed. So where I am right now with this, if we look at this in 3 stages, okay, number 1, it's like freezing phase where the pain really truly worsens and you're just like, this is not getting better. This feels so painful for me. Okay, the frozen phase where the stiffness and the loss of movement become a lot more significant. And then finally, what I like to refer to, because this will make you laugh from the frozen shoulder analogies, okay, the thawing phase, where mobility slowly begins to improve when we do the work to rehabilitate. So the way that my brain works is in those 3 phases. We've got the freezing phase, we've got the frozen phase, and then we've got the thawing phase. I would like to think that where I am right now is pretty much in the not so much, I'm in the freezing to frozen phase, where it's like the mobility is compromised, the movement is gradually getting worse, the pain is worsening, I can't continue to go on anymore like this, and I do not want to lose full movement in that arm. So we're doing something about it to get to the thawing phase, where I can get help to make this just improve and get better. The difficult part, the process, can last months, if not years. So where I am right now, as it's gradually been left to just do its thing, I've entered into that freezing to frozen phase without really anything supporting it. Now that I've had the cortisone injection, I may be months to years down the line before this shoulder is back, if at all, to its full range of movement. We don't know. But I'm okay with that because now I know about it, I can take action. So if you are listening to this and thinking, actually, this sounds a bit like me, this sounds a bit like what I've been experiencing, then I absolutely implore and urge you to go and seek some support with this. Go and see a physio, go and speak to a GP or medical specialist, get them to assess you, because this is nothing to leave and ignore. It will only get worse if you leave it without support. Now, when I looked at some of the research around this, it can suggest that frozen shoulder, as to what maybe you and I are experiencing, I definitely am right now, affects women more commonly than men. And when we look at that and ask ourselves why, particularly because women between the ages of 40 to 60 are in menopause. This is our menopause window. And more recently, when we look at this through the lens of, well, what do we know? Because we don't have that much of detailed depths research in menopause itself. But we know that there's an important link between the role of estrogen and the mobility that we have all around the body, not just in the shoulder movements. So as the role of estrogen plays such a dominant role, of course, when it starts to decline and drop during your perimenopause window, we face a bit of a deficiency in that hormone. And when estradiol in particular, part of your estrogen makeup, more biologically active, the more biologically active form of estrogen. This plays such a major role in connective tissue health, in collagen production, anti-inflammatory regulation, and maintaining your joint function. So of course, when that starts to drop significantly, as it has for me as a very early menopausal woman, then tissues become compromised. They're more vulnerable to stiffness and degeneration and inflammatory change. So for me, I am literally sharing with you right now a menopause-related issue that I am facing with inflammation, with vulnerability, and with the drop in the estrogen that I'm facing right now. It's wild, right, when we think about this and how it happens. Now, some menopausal women might actually have a significant increase in the risk of this. It really depends on your own health background, how active and mobile you are. All of these things come into it. And honestly, it makes so much sense, right? I know that you might be listening to this for the first time thinking, gosh, I never even thought about this. But we've got to look at this from a point of view that menopause is not just about missing your periods and having some flushies and sweats. Okay, it's wider, it's deeper, it's grander than that. It's a whole body transition. It's biopsychosocial. We have so many different changes that can occur physically, emotionally, and we know that declining estrogen and progesterone affects so many things in the body. Okay, tendons, muscle fiber recovery, collagen synthesis. This is all so vastly important and may partly explain why some women in menopause suddenly experience very unexplained joint pain or stiffness or tendon issues. Stiffness from the joints can then result in inflammation, and all of a sudden we're feeling a bit more puffy and sore in places. And it comes out of the blue and you're like, wait a minute, did I have a hard workout? Did I walk, a really difficult walking journey? Or we start to think about, is it something I've done? When in fact, this could actually be a direct link to the reduction in your hormones through your menopause journey. Now, it doesn't mean that menopause alone causes frozen shoulder. Yeah, I can't sit here and say to you, because I am in menopause, I have a frozen shoulder. There's many different reasons. Hormonal changes are just one potential, and they can massively amplify the problem. I may have got that anyway, but this is just really important for you and I to be understanding of. There are multiple risk factors that can come into this, and we do have to consider what those are together. Diabetes has a strong association. Previous injury, like I've shared with you, I have had that. It has had so many different niggles over the years. So potentially that's been one other thing causing it. Previous immobilization, where I've maybe had the damage to the muscle fibers and the muscle tissue. And then again, I've maybe slightly niggled it in the gym when I've been training at the start of the year. And then as that year has gone on and I've continued to do that over time, as my menopause has progressed as well, it's all of these different things. Inflammation, stress response, so many different confounding factors, right? It's like multifactorial, but we do have to consider that hormones play an important role in all of this. So I want to look at what I'm doing to help this right now, because this, I hope, will help you. Treatment usually focuses on pain reduction first. So we want to calm the inflammation and then work on restoring mobility. And that's exactly what I'm doing very gradually right now. So last week I had my cortisone injection and oh my gosh, it wasn't painful. It wasn't the most pleasant, but it's going to help to reduce the inflammation enough so that I can then have some quite intensive rehabilitation-based physiotherapy. And we can begin to do that effectively, probably within the next week. Often with frozen shoulder, movement alone becomes too painful without reducing the inflammation. And like I shared with you, my pain at the time that my physio was going in there and just assessing, I was like, it's a 10 out of 10, mate. We cannot, you cannot touch this until we do something. So the injection combined with physiotherapy is the route that I am personally taking. Again, this is not meant to replace any medical guidance or advice, but it is something that, from a personal perspective, the route that I am taking. I'm going to look to do physiotherapy probably every 6 weeks. And in between all of that, I will have my rehab exercises that I will do throughout the weeks until then. It will involve some stretching. It will involve some rehabilitation movements with or without weights. We will look to see what my physiotherapist puts together. But this is not just about pushing through. I want to invite you to see that this is going to require a bit of patience from you, a bit of consistency in doing the rehabilitation, because let's face it, it is quite boring, isn't it? If you've ever had physio, you know what I mean. But we have to do it. This is about giving self-love to our body. It's about understanding that in order for this to get better, and for me as a 52-year-old Adele, a 62-year-old Adele, a 72, an 82, who knows, maybe even a 92-year-old Adele, I still want to be able to have full range of movement in my body. So I want this arm to work properly. Right now, I'm sitting here delivering you this episode, And I'm probably in about a 4 out of 10 pain in the shoulder right now. And I'm not one for taking lots and lots of pain relief, but I've had to take some anti-inflammatories because it's sore. And I'm not going to sit and allow my body to go through pain. That is not self-love. So understanding where you are with this, understanding what changes might need to be made is number one. Number two, always seek professional support. I want to invite you to look at, if you believe that you are maybe facing the same, then speak with a medical provider or go and see a physiotherapist who can do an assessment of where you are and be able to guide you. Number three, you're going to start some form of rehabilitation for this with professional guidance. Okay, appropriate strength and mobility work. You're going to look at, well, for me, I've looked at different ways of making sure that I get ample sleep without the injury wakening me as much as possible. Anti-inflammatory lifestyle strategies that I'm bringing into this, both through movement, sleep and rest, and nutrition, which plays a big role in anti-inflammatory. I've looked at my hormone health, again, making sure that I'm being as well versed in my menopause care as possible at this time whilst I go through this rehab. And stress reduction. I've probably been in one of the biggest stress response environments for a very, very long time for the last 8 weeks. And it's interesting to see that actually the pain in the shoulder started to get worse about the start of the stress impacts. So we've got to take that into account. It also affects inflammation and it also affects recovery. And importantly, never dismiss yourself. Love yourself enough to see that this is maybe something that you need to go seek some help in, and believing that you are going to get that help. Okay, so important. Because early menopause or menopause at any point in your life changes things in your body physically, psychologically, emotionally. It's a change. And we have to be aware that when we enter into our menopause journey at any point, at any time, there are things that we will need to watch for and things that as women, we get to be very self-loving around the care that we get to seek. So if sharing this episode has helped you to even just be a little bit more aware, to connect in with this, maybe it's not you who's experiencing this, maybe it's someone you know and love, maybe now you're going to be able to help her to seek the help she needs. Because this is not just something that will go away on its own. It will get worse if untreated. So please, from me to you, do not sit on these symptoms and think that number one, they're just random, and number two, they'll just go away. They will not. Okay, they're not random. They won't just go away on their own. You need to get support for it. So please make that appointment. If you are experiencing anything I've chatted about or covered today, it's important you go get it checked. This episode is intended for purely educational and information purposes only. They reflect my own personal experience in this one to hopefully help you to be more aware, and also should not be a substitute for your own medical support, advice or diagnosis. So if you're experiencing pain, it is a sign your body needs your help. If you're experiencing any restricted movement in either one of your arms or shoulders, then please, if this is concerning you, go and seek some support. Consult with your GP or menopause specialist to get it checked. This is meant from a place of love and information. And until next week, please take what you need from this episode and leave what you don't, because discernment is your gift. Thank you for joining me for another week. I will see you at the next one.